Okay, Mona, it's time for you to leave, my mother-in-law said loudly. She spoke so loudly that it sounded like the roar of the sea bears in the harbor. We're going on a fancy cruise, just the four of us, right? I asked. But my mother-in-law didn't seem happy. Her face twisted into an even meaner expression. Did you really think someone like you, who can't even keep a house clean, could come with us on this cruise? How audacious of you. Take this money, Clark. A useless daughter-in-law like her doesn't need to have fun. You can't possibly enjoy a vacation at our level. You're too foolish to even understand that. I didn't argue back against her harsh words. In my everyday life, I was used to being treated poorly with no one to support me. I had already given up hope. My mother-in-law laughed rudely and boarded the ship in a cheerful mood for vacation. My father-in-law and husband didn't say anything either. I looked at the three of them quietly, and as the ship sailed away, I waved and shouted goodbye. Best of luck to you. My mother-in-law started yelling back at me, but I ignored her. You're about to go on a trip I've planned for you, she said. Well, it's the best trip for me, at least. Enjoy the surprise revenge I have in store for you. You'll find out the details when you get there. My name is Mona, and I'm a 38-year-old homemaker. I work as a clerk at a medium-sized company. I've been married to Andrew for 7 years. Andrew and I were friends from our college days. We lost touch after graduating, but we started meeting up again by chance. Eventually, we fell in love and started dating about a year later. Shortly after Andrew and I started dating, he shared a secret with me. He told me he was unable to have children because of a condition called infertility. He looked sad when he told me, saying, "If we're together, we won't be able to have kids." But I wasn't upset by it. I never really had a strong desire to have children myself, and I believed we could still find happiness together even without them. So for the past 7 years of our marriage, without any children, we've been living peacefully as a couple. However, our relationship with my parents-in-law has always been difficult. Our house is right across from theirs, and since Andrew works for their company, we see them often. I don't mind that part. The issue is that both of my parents-in-law treat me coldly. My mother-in-law has always favored Andrew, so she doesn't seem to like me much and treats me like a bother. She often tries to pass household chores onto me, which is a common occurrence. She'll say things like, "Mona, I'm busy with work, so could you do the laundry and cleaning?" Or, "Oh, you don't have to cook. I can't eat the food you make anyway." When I explain that I also work full-time and it's hard for me to do everything, she gets angry. She'll say things like, "How dare you talk back to your mother-in-law? You're not fit to be my son's wife. Pack your bags and leave now." On top of that, my father-in-law is also set in his old-fashioned ways. He often says things like, "Mona, when are you going to stop working? You're getting older, so you should have a child soon." Or he'll criticize my education, saying, "What kind of schooling did you even get?" In any case, times have changed. You can have a happy home without children. But that's not the real issue. If I hear more of that talk, I'll call your company tomorrow and demand you quit your job to have a child. Dealing with my in-laws is tough because they're so set in their traditional views. I try to respond politely, but they often respond with even more criticism, so sometimes I just ignore them. Andrew acts like he's unaware of their behavior. He's gentle and avoids conflict, but that's not always helpful. He worries about upsetting his parents, so he sometimes ignores their behavior or even agrees with them to keep the peace. I hate to admit it, but a big reason we haven't had children is because of Andrew's infertility. He asked me not to tell his parents, so I kept it to myself. But it hurts that he doesn't stand up for me when they criticize me. Despite all this, I still love Andrew. He's a good husband who even cooks dinner for me. When I come home late from work, it means we can go out and enjoy ourselves on weekends. Both of us love traveling and have explored many places during our 7 years of marriage. One day, my husband handed me a brochure. "Mona, wouldn't it be amazing to go on a luxury cruise ship? I've never been on one before, only on a ferry." That sounds like so much fun, but we don't have that kind of money right now. Well, let's plan for 2 years from now. We'll save up and work together until then. That sounds like a good idea. We should be able to save enough money in 2 years. Okay, let's do it. So we started focusing on saving money. We avoided unnecessary purchases and did our best to save every penny. Then, 6 months before the trip, my mother-in-law unexpectedly showed up at our house as usual. "Hey, I heard we're going on a luxury cruise. Have you booked it yet? If you don't hurry, you might miss out on reservations." I was surprised by her sudden question and asked her how she knew about our trip. Andrew, sitting across from me, sheepishly admitted, "Oh, I mentioned it to Mom. We'll be away for more than 10 days, so it seemed natural." "I get that. But if they find out before we book, they might want to come with us." I wanted to keep it a secret from them. But my mother-in-law kept talking. "Work might be busy, but it's important to have fun sometimes, right?" I couldn't believe it when my mother-in-law grinned and said, "Of course we're going. My husband will come too." It was shocking. I had wanted to go on this trip with just my husband, not with my in-laws. I looked at Andrew, hoping he would object. I couldn't remember the last time we had a trip together as a family, but Andrew remained silent, and I felt helpless. After that, my in-laws kept visiting and talking about the trip. I thought of asking Andrew, who had suggested the idea, to make the reservations, but he always dodged the conversation, claiming to be busy with work. About a month before the trip, something happened. Andrew went out for a business dinner and didn't return until after midnight. Worried, I grabbed the car keys to go pick him up. Just then, the front door slammed open, and Andrew came in. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed," he said, taking off his jacket and heading straight to the bathroom. I stayed up late, feeling anxious, but he acted like nothing was wrong. Feeling lonely, I picked up his jacket, and something fell out of the pocket. I quickly grabbed it. It was a small gift box with a message card tucked under the ribbon. Without thinking, I read the card, and what I saw shocked me to my core. "Thank you always, Andrew. I love you." My heart sank. As questions swirled in my mind, I couldn't shake off the uncertainty. Who had Andrew been meeting with last night, and who had given him this gift? What did that message really mean? Unable to sleep, I spent the night tossing and turning in the living room. The next morning, Andrew woke up nonchalantly with a big yawn. I confronted him with the gift box and message card. "What's this? Where were you yesterday? It wasn't just a business meeting, was it?" Andrew's eyes widened in surprise. "No, it wasn't like that. It's just that, thanks for helping her with work." "I see. It's quite a passionate thank you saying, 'I love you,'" I remarked. Andrew began stammering and repeating himself, trying to explain. "No, it's not like that. It's just..." Feeling frustrated with the situation, I decided to leave and go to work. Despite feeling uneasy, I managed to focus and finish my tasks by lunchtime. When I checked my phone, I saw numerous missed calls from my in-laws. Feeling annoyed, I hesitantly answered when my mother-in-law called again. "Hey, Mona. I heard you suspect Andrew of cheating on you. Our child would never do such a thing, you know. Even if he did, that's just a man's instinct." Excuse me," my mother-in-law said forcefully before my father-in-law took the phone. "That's right. If anything, it's your fault for doing something to make him cheat on you in the first place. Andrew only cheats because you don't have children and are always working. When you get home, make sure you apologize to my son. Got it?" My father-in-law said, spewing accusations before abruptly hanging up the phone. I'd had enough. My in-laws were painting me as the villain, and my husband, who didn't defend me, even sided with them. After enduring it all for so long, I finally decided to put my plan into action. Then came the day of our departure for the luxurious cruise. My in-laws and Andrew happily got into the car, ready for the trip. I would drive separately to the port and join them there. Inside, I felt a thrill of excitement. "It's going to be a fantastic trip," I said, holding back a laugh as I drove towards the port. But when we arrived, I was surprised to find the port quiet and deserted. I unloaded everyone's luggage and made my way towards the pier, breathing in the scent of the sea. Andrew seemed carefree and playful. Then, just as I was about to board, my mother-in-law approached me with a big smile on her face. "Thanks for booking the trip, Mona. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Don't forget to pick us up." Confused, I asked, "What do you mean? Aren't we all going on this trip together?" My mother-in-law sneered and made a nasty face. "Oh, a daughter-in-law is just a stranger to us. Don't you understand? As long as you pay up, we're fine." I stayed silent. Meanwhile, my father-in-law and husband were happily browsing through travel magazines. Andrew noticed my expression, shrugged, and shamelessly remarked, "Seems like it's true. By the way, I haven't seen any luxury cruise ship around. Where is it?" My mother-in-law looked around suspiciously, noticing the lack of other passengers. "Did you get the right location, Mona?" Don't worry, just enjoy yourselves from here, I said as I watched them board the boat. Is this really the right ship? My father-in-law muttered, eyeing the small boat in front of him. It's just a smaller boat to transfer you to the luxury cruise ship. It's a safety precaution, I reassured them. Don't worry, get on board quickly. I urged them onto the small boat with their luggage. Take care, I called to the boatman as they set off. Goodbye. Best of luck to you. With a big smile, I waved goodbye to them. I thought I heard my mother-in-law shouting something, but I ignored it. Once they disappeared from view, I gathered my things and headed back to the car, hoping for a fun trip ahead. Later, when I returned home, I gathered all the belongings I had before getting married, clothes, appliances, and furniture, and placed them in one spot. Just as I finished, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. How dare you trick us? There's no luxury cruise ship. Where are we? She shouted. Her frantic tone amused me, and I couldn't help but laugh. After a moment, I decided to respond to her question. There never was a luxury cruise ship. I knew you'd try to leave me behind, so I didn't book anything. Do you really think you could get away with this? Where are we? I could call the police, my father-in-law's voice chimed in. The police? That's a bit much. Don't you think? I simply brought you to your wife's hometown. Did you get a chance to see Aunt Mel? I replied. Once again, my mother-in-law shouted. What are you talking about? Aunt Mel, your older sister Mel. I spoke to her, and she suggested bringing you all there. She'll likely take good care of you, I clarified. Aunt Mel, who was like a mother figure to my mother-in-law, had a strong stance against dishonesty. Despite only meeting her a few times at family gatherings, we had always gotten along well. So, I decided to open up to her and share everything I had been going through with my in-laws and husband. As I had expected, Aunt Mel was furious but immediately offered her support. I'll come pick you guys up soon, she said, ending the call. Shortly afterward, I moved to a new apartment closer to my workplace, which made my daily commute much easier. During the move, I collected evidence of my husband's infidelity. He had been careless, leaving behind plenty of proof. By the time I had settled into my new place, I had gathered enough evidence to support my divorce case. With the help of a lawyer, we successfully finalized the divorce. I also sought compensation for the emotional damage caused by the affair. The lawyer who met with my ex-husband, Andrew, reported that he looked devastated and exhausted. Meanwhile, Aunt Mel, a well-known sports instructor in the local community, had been keeping my in-laws and Andrew extremely busy from morning till night. They were now living a life as demanding as the one they had imposed on me. Aunt Mel mentioned that if they genuinely repented, they could be released from their duties. However, my in-laws' family business had practically gone bankrupt, and they had nowhere else to turn. But their struggles were no longer my concern. I simply hoped to never have to see them again. On a brighter note, I've recently met a kind and understanding man who accepts me, including my divorce and all that led up to it. Once his work becomes less hectic, we plan to get married. Although my journey to happiness has been challenging, I'm looking forward to a joyful life with someone who always prioritizes me.
Go away, you useless wife who can't even do chores. I sat on the floor, feeling small and insulted, while my mother-in-law stared at me angrily. We don't need you. You always look sad. You're just a burden. My sister-in-law, who never helps at home, said mean things. Wait a second, Morris. Your mom and sister are being too mean. I tried to say, but before I could finish, even my husband Mauricio looked disappointed in me. My mom and sister are right. I don't need a wife who can't do chores and work. I have a young girl who helps part-time and is much better. Pack your things and leave, Mauricio said firmly. All three of them kept saying hurtful things, calling me a bad wife. I clenched my fists, feeling angry. After using me all this time, how could they be so mean? Just you wait. I'll make sure you all get what's coming to you. But I looked at the three of them and said without changing my expression, fine, I'll leave. The family that's been putting everything on me will see what happens next. My name's Eleanor. I'm 32 and a working wife. Nowadays, many women work after getting married. And I've kept working at the same company I joined after finishing college because I enjoy it. One morning, while I was getting ready for work, Mauricio asked me, "Hey Eleanor, can you handle this? Tax season is coming." And he handed me a bunch of receipts and invoices. Again, you should handle the shop's accounting. Mauricio avoided eye contact. You know I'm better at it, so please. I married Mauricio 5 years ago. He used to work at a restaurant where I'd sometimes go. After a few dates, we decided to get married. Now, Mauricio has his own cafe, but he leaves all the boring tasks like buying things and accounting to me. As I headed out the door, my mother-in-law said, "Eleanor, I want Chinese food tonight. Can you get the ingredients?" "No, you can do it when you get back. Also, Vivian and the kids are coming this weekend. Make sure you cook something they'll like," I reluctantly replied before leaving the house. When we got married, I wanted to live just with Mauricio, but he said we should live with his mom because he was worried about her being alone. So we moved to his big family house. My mother-in-law isn't good at cleaning, and the place was a mess when we moved in. She gets money from her pension but spends most of it eating out because she doesn't like cooking. Mauricio always says that housework is a woman's job, so even though I work too, I have to do all the chores for everyone in the family. On top of that, my sister-in-law, Vivian, who moved out after getting married, often comes back home with her kids. When she's here, I have even more work to do. This morning, when I heard she's coming back this weekend, I thought, oh no, not again. And then the dreaded weekend comes. I'd love to relax on my days off from work, but instead I have to take care of Vivian's kids and cook while rushing around. Vivian drops a big news on me. "Eleanor, by the way, I'm getting divorced and moving back here with the kids next month. Just so you know." "What? Are you serious? Got a problem with that?" No, that must be hard for you. When are you moving back?" "As soon as I can." My sister-in-law is coming home with her kids. At first, I'm surprised, but then I think it might be good because Vivian used to be a housewife, so she might help with the chores. That would make my life easier. Even though we're not very close, I hope for less work and go on with my days. But I quickly realized I was wrong. Vivian, just like her mom, doesn't do anything. She spends all day watching TV and eating snacks. She doesn't work or help around the house. Her laziness with chores was one of the reasons for her divorce. Now I have to do all the chores, even making meals for her fussy kids and getting them ready for school. As time goes on, my job gets busier with a new project needing more hours and early mornings. The house gets messier and messier. Coming home to a messy house is really disappointing, but everyone keeps asking, "When's dinner?" Or saying, "You're so slow." To make things worse, Vivian and my mother-in-law start making rude comments. "Eleanor, the laundry is piling up. Just because you work doesn't mean you can be lazy. But I'm busy too." When I try to explain, Vivian interrupts, talking back to your mother-in-law. "You're so brave, Eleanor. And you've been buying all the meals. That's not good for the kids. If you're home, can't you help a little?" What are you saying? Mauricio owns a business. You don't have to work. You're just selfish. So be a perfect wife. I couldn't believe it, and they acted like it was normal. That night, I was so mad I could burst. So I talked to Mauricio. "I'm busy with work, and neither your mom nor your sister is helping with the chores. Are you saying bad things about my mom and sister Eleanor?" Mauricio looked at me angrily. I said surprised, "No, that's not it. But I can't do all the chores alone. Could you help me a bit? I'm busy with my business. You might not get it because you have an easy job in an office, but running a business is tough. And isn't housework a wife's job? Don't expect me to help." Are you serious? Mauricio just goes to sleep, leaving me upset. But then I get an idea. I think of something good. I quickly grab my phone and order some things online before going to bed. A few days later, a bunch of new gadgets arrive. A machine that washes and dries clothes, a robot that cleans, and kitchen tools that cook by themselves. If no one's going to help me, I'll use these gadgets to make my chores easier. While the delivery guys bring in the new washer, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law arrive. "You bought a new washer without asking. The old one still works." "But it's old, and this will make laundry faster and easier," I argue. "What's all this? A cleaning robot and cooking gadgets. Eleanor, come here." They call me to the living room, where they're sitting on the sofa, and I'm told to sit on the floor. Mauricio is there too, sitting with his mom, looking pleased. "What's happening?" I ask. My mother-in-law yells, "What do you mean, what's happening? You spent all this money on lazy gadgets with the household money. What were you thinking?" I thought it would help with chores. It's not about helping. People these days rely too much on machines, my sister-in-law adds. Exactly, Eleanor. And those are fancy items. The ones we have still work. You're just wasting money because Mauricio owns a business. She stares at me, and Mauricio agrees. But you're just making things easier for yourself. Can't you even do chores properly? I wanted to reply, look who's talking, but I stayed quiet. Finally, my mother-in-law, maybe tired of my quietness, snaps, if you can't do chores properly, you should leave. I stare at her in surprise. She stares back at me. We don't need you. Mauricio and I can manage without you. You always seem tired and unhappy. You're just a burden. My sister-in-law says like she's had enough. Hold on, Mauricio. Your mom and sister are being too mean. When I look to Mauricio for support, he looks down at me and says, they're right. I don't need a wife who can't handle chores. I look at Mauricio in shock, but he just smirks. I'm a business owner and I can spend my money however I want. I don't need a wife who spends it to make her life easier. Why would you say that? And I've been getting along with a young part-time helper. She's pretty, unlike you. Pack your things and go. Shocked by Mauricio's words, all three start criticizing me, saying I'm a bad wife. I clench my fists in anger. After using me for so long, they say this to me. Just you wait, I'll make you sorry, but I stayed calm and said, okay, I'll go. Good will be better without you, my mother-in-law said meanly, and I quietly stood up and put something on the table. Mauricio, let's get divorced. It was a form for divorce that I had prepared earlier. Tired of everything. Okay, I'll sign it. But don't regret it later. Mauricio signed the papers, and I packed my bags and moved to a temporary apartment the same day. No one said goodbye to me. I handed in the divorce papers at City Hall and rented a new place. At the same time, I accepted a promotion at work that I had been turning down because of housework, and I became a department head. I was able to move forward in my career, which I had almost given up on, and I focused more and more on my job. Happy that nobody was there to hold me back, I felt relieved about a week after leaving. My ex-mother-in-law started calling, but I was busy and didn't want to talk to someone who had called me worthless. I kept ignoring her calls. A year later, on a day when I wasn't working, she called again. Thinking it was time to sort things out, I answered, hello? Ah, Eleanor, you finally picked up. Why did you ignore me for over a year? What do you want? Well, how are you? Are you okay? I replied honestly, I'm doing great. Working hard in my own place. I got a better job and more money. I'm living well. Really? Would you think about coming back? She sounded almost desperate, and I asked, surprised, why now? We're having problems. We're running out of money. I couldn't help but smile as I said, oh? Mauricio's cafe isn't even making $11,000 in profit. Huh. And neither you nor your daughter are working. So that makes sense. Eleanor, you knew. Yes, I knew. Mauricio's cafe was only making about $800 a month in profit. I handled the money, so of course I knew. Mauricio's cafe was only making about $800 a month in profit. I handled the money, so of course I knew. Mauricio acted like a big business owner but didn't manage things properly or take care of customers. So he probably didn't know. Of course I knew. I was the one doing all the money stuff and keeping track of what we had. What? Why didn't he tell us? I didn't know you were a big manager at a company and giving so much money for us to live. Yeah, I was giving over $3,000 every month. That's how we all managed. I was adding my money to help because I knew Mauricio's shop wasn't making much. Maybe Mauricio realized he couldn't handle things without my money after I left. Please, Eleanor, come back. Oh, by the way, what happened to Mauricio's shop? Ignoring my ex-mother-in-law's request, I asked, is Mauricio's shop closing next month? Even the part-time helper left him. It's not surprising with such bad management, he can't run a business. And he's too proud to do what he needs to do. No woman would want to be with a man like that. I laughed, and my ex-mother-in-law didn't know what to say. Can we finish? I'm busy, she quickly said. Also, the house has been a mess since you left. She said the house was a mess because no one was cleaning. The house was messy. Nobody was cooking, so they had to buy meals, and they couldn't even buy a new washing machine. It would have been nice if you left those machines, ex-mother-in-law says. What are you saying? Those lazy machines? And why can't I take what I paid for? I shouldn't have said that, but I never thought the house would get like this just because nobody was doing chores, I said, getting a bit annoyed. Isn't it strange that 3 grown-ups can't handle chores? What are your daughter and Mauricio doing? She whispered. Well, Mauricio is sitting at home all day, doing nothing since he found out his shop isn't making money. He said he could spend his money however he wanted because he's a business owner. And Vivian won't work, no matter what I say. She doesn't do chores. And she even asks me for money for herself and her kids. My pension is running out. Really? Your daughter told me she didn't need me because she had you, I said coldly. My ex-mother-in-law tried to be nice again. Please, Eleanor, my pension isn't enough for us anymore. I don't want to go back to that house. Your children are quite the freeloaders, aren't they? She didn't know what to say. As I was about to end the call, she kept talking. Eleanor, will change. Please come back. Let's all be happy together again. Sure, be happy with a useless wife, I interrupted, and she struggled with her words but kept begging. I'm sorry for what I said. We're family. Help us. We can't even pay the taxes for the house. We'll have to sell it. I don't have to help you, and I don't want to. Figure it out yourselves. Goodbye from your useless wife. I hung up and blocked her number, ignoring her cries. Sipping my coffee in my tidy apartment, I chuckled. 3 months later, I happened to walk past Mauricio's cafe. It was closed. Even their house was sold. According to a neighbor I met, they sold the house and moved to a small apartment nearby. They caused trouble in the neighborhood, always fighting and making a mess. People complained a lot. They could have worked hard and taken care of their home. But they didn't, which wasn't surprising. I looked at their old house and walked away. Since then, I've focused on my work. Recently, a nice colleague told me he liked me, saying, I love how you work so hard. Let's date and maybe get married. I think my next marriage isn't far off, and this time, I'm excited to find happiness. I'm a 35-year-old office worker, and my husband Kevin, who is 6 years older, and I have been married for 9 years. Right now, due to some reasons, I'm living with my mom. Let me explain how I ended up in this situation. 4 years ago, Kevin and I built a house. At that time, Kevin had just changed jobs, and we didn't have much money saved or a big income. Kevin used to work for a big company, but he faced constant hidden bullying from his boss. This caused him sleep problems, and eventually he couldn't go to work anymore. He saw a psychiatrist, took a break for about 3 months, but when he didn't get better, he quit his job. After that, we got by on just my salary. Kevin didn't work for 3 months, but slowly started to feel better. He began eating and sleeping well again, and his psychiatrist was pleased with his quick recovery. My cheerful, loving Kevin was back. He then started looking for a new job. His experience at the big company helped, but finding a job was hard because he left his last job due to mental health issues. During this time, we found a small company that needed him. The salary was about a third of what he used to make, but he was happy to be working again. He said it was much better than being without a job, which made me happy. This job was also in the field he wanted to work in. We wanted to have children, but it was clear that life would be tough if I stopped working, so I continued working. I also loved my job, and we decided not to have children at that time. Since it was just the 3 of us, our life was peaceful until my mother, Sarah, was paralyzed in a car accident and needed a wheelchair to get around. My dad had passed away when I was in middle school, and Sarah had been living alone since then. Our family home was old and not suitable for a wheelchair, with many steps. Kevin then said, I'm worried, let's live together. Sarah and I were surprised, but I appreciated Kevin's unexpected kindness. Since Kevin had just changed jobs, we were unsure about the future, but we decided to apply for a mortgage. As we expected, it was tough to get a loan because Kevin hadn't been at his job for long. However, we were determined and didn't give up. After trying with several mortgage companies, we finally found one that worked with us and approved our loan. We bought our dream home, which I had always imagined, filled with the smell of wood, thick wooden beams on the ceiling, custom storage spaces, a kitchen tailored for my height, and spacious cypress flooring. Importantly, it was a single-story, barrier-free house, perfect for living comfortably in a wheelchair. We were excited as the house was being built and visited the construction site every day. When our carefully designed home was finished, it had a large yard where my mom, who now seldom went outside, could enjoy sunbathing. However, there was a catch with the land. It was given to us by Kevin's grandfather, who adored Kevin. Kevin's family wasn't wealthy, but when his grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, he started to distribute his assets, giving us the largest plot of land. It felt like winning the lottery, but the land was just a 10-minute walk from Kevin's family home. When we told them my mother would be moving in with us, Kevin's sister laughed and said, "Why is your mother moving in too? How shameless is your family?" Kevin's mother told me marrying someone different like you would bring trouble. She also harshly said it was terrible for her son to have to care for an old person and called me a curse. Even then, Kevin stood up for my mother and me. He said the land was a gift from his grandfather, and no one should complain. Kevin's mother and sister are really mean. It's amazing that Kevin, who is so kind, comes from that family. He's like a beautiful flower that grew out of mud. Kevin always says his family shows him how not to be. Kevin thinks his grandfather gave us the land because he wanted us to take care of his mother in her old age. He also gave other properties away. Kevin's sister got a parking lot that's a 10-minute walk from their home. It's smaller than our land but makes good money from parking fees. Honestly, I would have preferred that, but a gift is still a gift. And we are thankful. Thanks to my grandfather-in-law, we could build our house without paying for the land and used it to help get a loan. When the house was finished, we invited Kevin's mother and sister's family over. The builders told us they had visited the house several times without asking us. They showed up late without apologizing and said, "This is kind of like Grandpa's house, so it's like our house too." Kevin's sister came in with muddy shoes and said the house smelled nice and didn't need air fresheners. She and her husband walked around with muddy shoes, ignoring the slippers we offered. When I suggested they use slippers, she laughed and said it was too much trouble and we could just clean the floor. The visit was uncomfortable from the start, and they didn't bring anything with them. When they saw my mother's room, which is spacious and sunny, Kevin's mother said she would like that room. My mother's room is like a duplex with its own kitchen, almost a second living space. "I want to live here," said my mother-in-law during the third point of her conversation. She then told my mother, "You were lucky to have that accident, weren't you? Thanks to being paralyzed, you moved from that old shack to this nice house. Isn't that a lucky turn of events?" My mother said nothing but looked very sad. I was really angry inside, but before I could say anything, Kevin spoke up. "What'd you just say? There are things you should and shouldn't say. It makes me question your humanity. I can't even believe you're part of my family. You're the worst. Apologize now," Kevin demanded firmly. Whether they were amused or not, my mother and sister-in-law glared at me. Then my sister-in-law angrily asked Kevin, "What's this all about?" "It's a total turnoff. It's not cool to invite people over and then be rude to them just because you built a house. You think you can act superior." The mother-in-law chimed in, "My son messed up by marrying you. You're a jinx." Kevin didn't stay silent. "Enough is enough. This mess started because of your rude comments. You said the accident was a good thing and called my wife a jinx. I will not forgive that." The mother and sister-in-law looked frustrated by Kevin's strong response. Then my mother, who had been watching everything, said with regret, "It's okay. I am here because of the accident, and it's true I moved from a rundown house to this beautiful one. Your son has always been kind to me. Thank you." Perhaps feeling guilty, the mother and sister-in-law left, giving me a nasty look. My mother then apologized to Kevin. "I'm sorry if I upset your mother and sister. I'm sorry for ruining the mood at our housewarming party." Kevin responded, "No, I should be the one apologizing. It's embarrassing how they lack decency. I'm really sorry, but I am happy to be living with you. Please understand that." With that, my mother started to tear up. Since we live near Kevin's parents' house, the neighbors all know us well. They've known Kevin since he was a child and are very kind to us. 4 months have passed since that day. We were finally settling into our new home, and my mother started to smile more. When I received an unexpected call from home while I was at work, it surprised me. We rarely get calls from home, so it surprised me. My bad feeling was right. My mom, sounding very upset, called to tell me something awful. Kevin had collapsed at work. I was shocked and spoke to my right away. Then I rushed to the hospital. On the way, I tried to stay calm by imagining that Kevin would be okay. When I got there, joking around like always. But when I arrived, it was a shock to see him with so many tubes attached to him. We had plans to go to a movie that weekend. The doctor told me Kevin was in critical condition and might not wake up. I felt like I was in a movie. I couldn't even cry. Despite my prayers, Kevin passed away at the hospital. My shock continued as my mother and sister-in-law arrived when they heard Kevin had died. My sister-in-law accused me harshly, asking if I had poisoned him or if I was after his life insurance. My mother-in-law also blamed me, saying bad things always happen around me and called me a jinx. I was too sad to respond. Then my own mother arrived in a carediver's taxi, crying over Kevin's death, which finally made me cry too. We both sobbed loudly. My mother-in-law rudely told us to stop the fake crying. She said Kevin had changed because of me and that she didn't want to see us ever again. Then she left the hospital. A funeral director came to organize Kevin's funeral, and we went to the funeral home. Kevin had died from a brain hemorrhage, which was hard to believe since he was fine that morning. When I told my mother-in-law the funeral plans, she hardly said she wouldn't come because Kevin always sided with my mother and me. She said her daughter wouldn't come either. Many of Kevin's coworkers and friends came to the viewing, but neither my mother nor my sister-in-law and her husband were there. Many attended the funeral, and it was clear that Kevin was deeply loved. Many people cried for him. It was hard, but maybe this is just the kind of people his family were. I was happy to spend the whole day with those who truly missed my husband. After Kevin's death, I got an email from my mother-in-law, but it was inappropriate, so I didn't reply. She was asking about the life insurance money and kept emailing because I didn't respond. Eventually, she claimed she had a right to it. I chose to ignore it because I wasn't ready to deal with that. When we got home, I noticed a light on inside, which was odd. My mother, Sarah, was confused and thought we had turned off all the lights. I figured maybe I forgot because I was so upset. I told her it was understandable given the situation, and I unlocked the door. When we entered, we could hear the TV, which was very strange. Inside, we found my sister-in-law and her husband sitting there. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak up. The living room was full of unfamiliar furniture and boxes. We had no idea what was happening. My sister-in-law said, "Why did you just barge in here?" "Well, it's your first time, so I'll let it slide. We're taking this house. We sold your stuff, so leave." My mother and I were completely shocked. I asked where our furniture and belongings had gone, and she casually said a resale company came and took everything, claiming we had good furniture and they got a good price for it. They bought new furniture with that money, saying who wants furniture that a dead person used? It's bad luck. She added that she cared about such things, and our stuff was packed in boxes. She even remarked that we must be minimalists or just poor because we had so few things. The furniture was carefully chosen by my husband, and I couldn't forgive them for this. My mom was furious too, her face turning beet red, but she was too shocked to respond. I immediately called the resale company. After explaining the situation, they agreed to treat the items as stolen and return them. Now that my husband is gone, dealing with this was the last thing I needed. I don't want anything to do with his family, but I do want to stay in the house that's full of memories of him. While I was wrestling with these feelings, my mother quietly said to me, "What do you think Kevin would say if he were here now?" "He might say we should leave. I'm sure he would. Kevin often mentioned it's good to spend time with people who understand you, but there are some people who will never understand, no matter how much you try. It's a waste of time dealing with those people." He was actually talking about his own mother and sister. I realized that if we stayed, his family would keep interfering, acting on impulse. I signed a lease for an accessible apartment. My mom was surprised by how quickly I made that decision. I asked the resale company to hold on to the furniture for a few days, and it was moved to our new apartment. 3 days later, in exchange for moving out, I made my mother-in-law and sister-in-law promise to cut ties with us. So a new life began for just my mother and me in the apartment. It turns out Kevin had many life insurance policies, almost obsessively so. He used to joke, always with a smile, "When I die, you guys will be rich." True to his word, he left enough money for my mother and me to be comfortable for the rest of our lives. Since he couldn't secure a mortgage when we bought the house, I, being employed at a major corporation, bought the house in my name. I made sure that even if something happened to Kevin first, I wasn't going to keep paying a mortgage for a house I wouldn't live in. According to our agreement, the house would be auctioned off if the mortgage wasn't paid for 4 months. Time flew by, and 4 months passed quickly. Then I started receiving a lot of calls from my sister-in-law Emily and my mother-in-law Maria. My call history was filled with their names, and it was getting scary, like something out of a horror movie. They were incredibly persistent, so I finally answered the phone. They were furious because the house was being sold. Apparently, when they tried to return to the house, they found out they couldn't get in because of a seizure notice. Emily and her husband had moved out of their apartment since Kevin passed away, and Emily had also quit her job. I suggested they move back into their parents' house since they were panicking about suddenly being homeless. Surprisingly, Maria had gotten so caught up in gambling that she couldn't keep up and had sold her own house. It turns out they had been living together for the past 5 months. I also heard that they sold their main source of income, a parking lot in front of the train station, a long time ago. Now Maria and Emily's family are completely homeless. When Maria said, "I'm sorry for everything. Let's get along. Can you lend me some money, please?" I replied, "I think it's best if you stay away since I'm a jinx. We're strangers now that we've severed ties." Maria was quiet after mumbling weakly. In my mind, I was thinking, who's the real bad luck charm here? Then when I said I wouldn't lend them a single cent, Emily, who had been listening next to Maria, shouted, "You devil. Bring us the money right now. I am a devil and bad luck, so I'm going to hang up now." I replied and ended the call. In reality, I involved a lawyer for the past 5 months to push for the auction of the house. I thought it was an unusual case, but apparently, it's not that uncommon. The house was sold without any major issues, giving our family a moment of peace. We plan to find a new home with the money Kevin left us. Since it's just my mother and me, we don't need a big house. We'd rather prioritize security as 2 women living together. So I chose a condominium with minimal noise disturbance. I remember something my husband always said when we built our home. People can get energy from the sun. So let's create a place where the mother-in-law can enjoy her hobby of reading in the garden without feeling self-conscious. With those words, he had made a spacious courtyard for her. It's heartening to hear that you found a condominium with a spacious balcony where your mother-in-law can enjoy her coffee and reading. While the new place may be smaller than your previous home, it's comforting to know that you're able to keep some of the furniture your husband likely chose. The sale of the house, which was on the expansive land gifted by Kevin's grandfather, fetched more than expected, providing a solid financial foundation for your family's future. The decision to invest in a luxurious condominium with top-notch security features is a testament to your late husband's cautious nature, and it undoubtedly brings you a sense of peace in the wake of the tumultuous events involving your in-laws. Since Kevin's passing, life has taken a dramatic turn, and navigating the fallout from his family's actions has been emotionally draining. Following the auction of the house, Maria and Emily found themselves without a place to live and ended up in public housing. Despite their efforts to secure financial assistance, they've resorted to disruptive behaviors, such as hosting barbecues on their small balcony, which have left the community incredulous. These actions, coupled with frequent loud arguments, highlight their disregard for others' comfort and the challenges they face in adjusting to their new circumstances. With Emily's husband having left, she and Maria are now facing these challenges on their own. It's a difficult situation, but it's clear that you've made the right choice in prioritizing your own peace and security as you move forward with your mother in your new home. Your reflections are deeply poignant and resonate with a sense of closure and determination to move forward. The stark contrast between the peaceful sanctuary you've created with your mother and the turmoil your former family is experiencing serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of one's actions. It's evident that you found solace in creating a tranquil haven where you and your mother can feel safe and secure, free from drama and disruptions. Despite the challenges you faced, you remain committed to honoring Kevin's memory by living a life filled with positivity and peace. Your decision to focus on living authentically and compassionately reflects a deep understanding of what truly matters in life. As you navigate this new chapter, guided by Kevin's spirit of kindness and resilience, you're determined to live in a way that would make him proud. Your journey of resilience, growth, and honoring Kevin's legacy serves as an inspiration to cherish the moments of silence, savor the memories, and embrace the beauty of living well. As you continue on this path, may you find comfort and strength in the love and laughter you shared with Kevin, and may your chosen sanctuary continue to be a source of peace and joy in your life.